We assume that as we get older, we naturally just grow out of playing. If you look at the recent behavioral studies on adult psychology, we uncover this massive contradiction. Adults who, regularly engage in play are actually 31% more productive.
Which is a huge metric.
It's massive, and beyond just productivity, they're significantly less likely to experience burnout.
Yeah, which completely dismantles our modern definition of what actually constitutes productive behavior. I mean, we've built a culture that views play as the exact opposite of work, right?
Right.
When the data actually indicates that play is the engine that makes sustainable work possible in the first place.
So we look at that data, we see those massive benefits, and yet the same studies reveal that most adults completely stop playing after their mid-20s. The realization here is, well, it's incredibly uncomfortable. You didn't simply grow out of play. You were systematically trained out of it.
Yeah, we socialize ourselves right out of the exact state of mind that keeps the brain vibrant and resilient.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Kate.
Welcome to the Living Better podcast. We are so glad you're here. We built this show around a core motto: living longer is a science, living better is a choice.
And we really want to express our genuine gratitude to this incredible podcast community for spending your time with us today. If you find value in these conversations, consider taking a second to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us continue bringing this research to light.
It genuinely does.
Yeah.
Now let's set the mission for this episode, because today our goal is not to talk about just, taking a break.
Right, we aren't looking at the benefits of zoning out on the couch or binge watching Netflix for 6 hours.
Exactly. We are going to explore the neuroscience of real play, like curiosity, experimentation, absolute nonsense. We're going to unpack the biological reasons why the absence of this specific behavior is making us feel so incredibly empty, and how we can realistically get it back.
Because to figure out how to reclaim it, we first have to isolate how we lost it without noticing. And that requires a really rigid definition of what real play actually is.
Right. Look, we aren't talking about joining an adult softball league.
No, not at all. Not organized sports with strict rules and referees and championships. According to the research, real play is characterized by spontaneity. It has to be entirely curiosity-driven, and most importantly, it's experimentation devoid of any high-stakes outcome.
So it's doing something completely useless. The outcome doesn't matter. The score doesn't matter. It's just the nonsense of it all.
Exactly.
And trying to understand why this nonsense matters means looking at how the nervous system interprets our actions. The brain doesn't actually have a neat little folder for fun activities and another one for survival tasks.
Right, it doesn't categorize like that.
It just operates on a spectrum of stimulation. It primarily registers whether it feels alive and engaged, or whether it's threatened, stressed, and shutting down.
Yeah, and let's look at the underlying mechanisms here, like comparing a child's brain to an adult's brain. A child playing with blocks, or, I don't know, building a fort in the living room, they are in a state of profound neuroplasticity.
Right, they're in a constant learning loop.
Exactly. The brain is undergoing synaptic genesis. It's creating massive amounts of new neural connections, testing the laws of physics, social boundaries, emotional regulation all at once. The brain is highly flexible. But then we look at the adult brain.
Which is a very different picture.
Right. The adult brain has stopped playing and undergoes a process called synaptic pruning. As we age, the brain trims away connections we don't use to make the ones we do use faster and more efficient.
I was reading through the sources trying to visualize this, and it made me think of this analogy. The adult brain, without play, is basically like an unstretched muscle. It becomes super tight, really rigid, and highly prone to injury.
Oh, totally.
Whereas a playing child's brain is like a flexible acrobat. It can bend and twist without breaking.
That's a perfect way to look at it. Because neurobiologically, when the adult brain stops engaging in that outcome-free play, that efficiency turns into rigidity. You lose that acrobatal flexibility because you're no longer forcing the brain to operate outside of its established, predictable pathways.
Right. Which prompts a really direct question for you listening right now. When was the last time you did something completely useless just because it was fun?
And if you struggle to answer that, it proves the point. We intentionally erase these activities because they feel unproductive.
Yeah.
We trick ourselves into thinking this loss of elasticity is just what being a responsible adult feels like.
We literally take the loss of our mental elasticity and wear it as a badge of honor. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm not boring, I'm just responsible.
Yeah, but treating play like a frivolous luxury we can't afford directly leads to a modern epidemic that we are completely misdiagnosing.
Right, which brings us to burnout, because the hidden trade-off of modern adulthood is assuming that removing play only sacrifices fun, but it actually destroys that mental elasticity we were just talking about.
And when you destroy mental elasticity, you fundamentally alter how the human body experiences exhaustion. When people talk about burnout, they almost always picture pure physical depletion.
Yeah, like collapsing into bed after a 14-hour shift, just totally drained.
Right, entirely out of physical energy. But the research points to a completely different manifestation.
Hmm.
Burnout rarely looks like just needing a nap.
Because physical exhaustion is cured by sleep, right? But burnout isn't.
Exactly. The sources show burnout actually presents as a profound lack of ideation. It manifests as emotional numbness, an incredibly low baseline of curiosity, and this heavy sensation that every single day feels exactly the same.
That specific phrase, that everything feels the same, you have the physical energy to drive to the office and answer emails, your muscles work fine, but you feel completely hollow while doing it.
And this emptiness is the result of what researchers define as the quiet stress loop. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. As daily stress increases, the likelihood of engaging in play plummets. You think, I don't have time for a hobby, I have a massive project due on Friday. But the less you play, the more rigid your neural pathways become. You lose the ability to adapt, and consequently, you become even more stressed by minor daily challenges because your brain has lost its shock absorbers.
Stress kills play.
Yes, which breeds more rigidity, which breeds more stress.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on this a little bit because on paper, that quiet stress loop makes total sense. But practically speaking, isn't it natural that when we're stressed by real life adult problems, our brains naturally shut down the fun centers to focus on surviving?
Yes, biologically.
Right. Like if someone is dealing with crushing credit card debt or caring for a sick parent or facing corporate layoffs, how can we be expected to play when we're literally just trying to keep our heads above water?
No, it's a completely valid point. The initial biological instinct you're describing is totally accurate. When the brain detects an acute threat, the amygdala fires up. Cortisol and adrenaline flood the body. In that state, the brain absolutely deprioritizes play and creative thought to focus entirely on immediate survival.
Right, which makes sense.
But the critical flaw in our modern physiology is that our stressors are no longer acute, they are chronic.
The threat of a layoff or a mortgage payment never actually goes away. It just sits in the background forever.
Exactly, which means the amygdala never fully powers down. We are marinating in a constant low-level drip of cortisol. And because the brain equates the state of play with the biological signal for aliveness and safety, shutting it down indefinitely signals to the brain that the threat is permanent.
Wow.
Yeah. The brain interprets chronic stress without the release valve of play not as surviving, but as a slow death. It deepens the burnout.
So, by ruthlessly focusing only on survival tasks to protect ourselves, we are actually suffocating the exact neurological networks that make survival feel worth it. We think we're being efficient, but we're just locking ourselves into emotional numbness.
And the logical response most people have when they realize they're stuck in this numbness is to try and fix it by acquiring a hobby. But the behavioral data shows that simply picking up a new activity rarely works. Modern adulthood has fundamentally infected our downtime too.
Oh, absolutely. It's this optimization epidemic. We've internalized this strange, insidious rule that if an activity doesn't produce something tangible, it feels wrong.
Right. The need to optimize has colonized our leisure. Think about how basic hobbies have evolved. They used to be purely for decompression. Now they are completely optimized through fitness tracking, side hustles, rigid routines,
Everything has to lead somewhere.
everything. You don't just go for a casual jog to clear your head, you wear a smartwatch to track your biometrics and post it to a leaderboard. You don't just bake bread, you have to perfect a complex sourdough starter for social media.
I experienced this exact trap a few years ago. I realized I was super burned out and needed an outlet that had nothing to do with my daily work. So I thought I was going to try watercolor painting.
Okay, nice.
I had no background in it at all. I bought a cheap palette and some textured paper, sat at my kitchen table, and for the first 10 minutes it was fantastic. Mixing water and pigment, watching the colors bleed into the paper, it was pure play.
Engaging that unstructured thought process.
Exactly. But the moment I painted something that looked vaguely like a mountain, my adult brain immediately intervened. The internal monologue started whispering, hey, if you practice this for a few months, you could set up an Etsy shop.
Oh no.
Right, like you could do a whole series on local landscapes. I started telling myself I needed to pull up a YouTube tutorial on proper color theory so I wasn't wasting the paper. Within 20 minutes, the anxiety of needing to produce something good completely killed the joy.
And that perfectly illustrates the shift from intrinsic motivation to extrinsic motivation. Your brain could not tolerate engaging in an activity that lacked a productive destination. The clinical research underscores this exact phenomenon. The benefits of play rely entirely on it being insulated from metrics and optimization. Play must have no destination.
Because when humans systematically strip away outcome-free activities, when every minute is geared toward a goal or a deliverable, creativity collapses silently and slowly.
You wake up one day and realize it's been years since you had an original idea that wasn't just a reaction to stress.
So recognizing that we've optimized the fun out of our lives, how do we actually reverse this? Without turning play into just another item on our to-do list. Like if I schedule mandatory nonsense from 4 to 4:15 on my calendar, I've already ruined it.
Right. Approaching play with aggressive time management defeats the purpose. The solution is not to add more discipline, it is to subtract control. Play isn't about the activity itself, it's about giving yourself psychological permission to exist without a goal.
Which brings us to the concept of microplay. Because telling an exhausted professional to go play a board game for 3 hours is an impossible ask.
Yeah, microplay bypasses that resistance. It involves injecting microscopic, zero-stakes moments of unpredictability into your existing routine. And the ultimate brain rewiring tool for this is improvisational play.
Now, when you say improv, people immediately panic, right? The mind goes straight to a dimly lit comedy club where you're forced on stage.
Which would be a high-stakes nightmare for most people. No, improvisational play just means placing yourself in a situation where you don't know exactly what's going to happen next and forcing the brain to adapt in real time. It isn't about structured games or competing.
It's the kind of play where you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. Navigating novelty with curiosity rather than anxiety. That real-time adaptation restores creativity the fastest.
So let's translate this into realistic daily actions for the listener. How do we subtract control today? One of the most fascinating recommendations from the research is intentionally doing something badly.
Purposeful incompetence. It's an incredible tool for short-circuiting the inner critic. Sing a song in the shower wildly off-key on purpose. Draw a ridiculously bad sketch of your coffee mug. By explicitly setting out to do it badly, you eliminate the pressure to optimize.
Another brilliant microplay tactic is exploring familiar environments without a plan. You walk out your front door, but instead of taking your standard route to get your 10,000 steps in, you flip a coin at every intersection. Heads you go left, tails you go right.
You surrender the destination. You aren't executing a route, you're exploring. The brain has to process new visual stimuli, which engages those orienting networks in a really playful way.
You can also try making an unfiltered observation or a joke. Keeping it appropriate for your environment, obviously, but allowing a silly or nonsensical thought to be spoken out loud instead of immediately suppressing it because it doesn't sound professional.
And perhaps the most vital recommendation for our current culture: create something, anything, and explicitly refuse to share it on social media.
Yes. Build a Lego set, write a terrible poem, bake a lopsided cake, and keep it entirely to yourself.
You have to prove to your own nervous system that an experience holds intrinsic value, even if it remains entirely unperceived and unmeasured by the outside world.
That permission to exist without external validation is so powerful. Bringing this all together, adulthood shouldn't be about losing play. It should be about remembering it in a different form.
Exactly. The medical and cultural consensus tells us the opposite of burnout is rest. But resting just returns your battery to baseline so you can endure another cycle of stress. The true opposite of burnout isn't rest, it is aliveness.
So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Look at your calendar. If absolutely everything in your life serves a purpose, a metric, or a goal, you might be entirely missing the point of being alive.
A challenging realization, but necessary.
It really is. So your homework for today is simple. Do something entirely pointless, make sure it isn't productive, make sure it isn't optimized, just be alive. Thank you for spending your time with us on this episode.
And remember to subscribe if you haven't already.
See you next time.